Welcome back to the Footy Frontline podcast. My name is D'Urbano and I'm joined here today by Ollie Caffrey to dissect a massive round one that's now in the books. Ollie, we've had 9 games of action. We've seen some of the teams twice already. Plenty to dissect from the first full weekend of footy of 2024.
Yeah, another huge round, and the Grand Finalists slipping up is going to be a big storyline to come in the next few weeks to see how they respond. So, yeah, we did not see that coming, that the Lions in Collingwood were be that shaky this early in the season. So, yeah, it's a bit happening.
Well, it's the first time in footy history, I think, that the 2 grand finalists have started 0-2, and that's probably the best place to start. Collingwood falling to a big defeat against Sydney, and the Lions losing away to Fremantle. We'll start with Collingwood. Friday night footy, it was billed as a chance for them, a bit of a get-right game as well after losing an opening round against the Giants. They unfurled the flag. It was a big occasion playing in front of their home support, but God, there was such a poor performance from the Pies, who were just overrun by a much better Sydney team on Friday night.
Yeah, if there's any evidence footy is 90% above the shoulders, that is it. Collingwood just weren't switched on at all. Their pressure wasn't there. That's what it's built on. That's what the game's been built on the last few years, just pressure, intensity, getting to the ball first, and they just weren't. They were just overpowered by Sydney right from the start. It could have been a lot worse at quarter time. The Swans missed a lot of shots in that first quarter and kept Collingwood in the game. But, yeah, after that, once the Swans started kicking straight, it was all over. And yeah, I know I said last week that that'd be fine, but yeah, definitely some concerns there now for Craig McRae and the coaching staff that they weren't able to lift. And yeah, when their intensity isn't there, it just exposes them across the ground. You look at the midfield, like you got Dacos and DeGoey, the absolute superstars, but yeah, they're relying on too few at the moment. And then the defence looked just completely ordinary at times. Darcy Moore looked really out of sorts. And then, yeah, the forward line's a massive issue, I think. No Dan McStay there to clunk those big contested marks. And, yeah, Brody Myercheck not quite himself at the moment. Lucky Schultz looked okay at times, quite early, but then did come into the game. But, yeah, some concerns across the park for the Pies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interestingly enough, Collingwood actually won the centre clearances and won the clearances on the day, but it was just everything else around that. They were completely outgunned. It seemed like for every one Collingwood shirt, there was always 2 Sydney jumpers. They were spreading so quickly. They almost looked, I don't want to say fitter, but it felt like they had an extra pep in their step than Collingwood. Collingwood just felt lethargic, uncharacteristic turnovers. You mentioned Darcy Moore. There was one in particular in the third quarter where went right back into the corridor and basically kicked it straight into his opponent, and then Justin McInerney goes back the other way and kicks an easy goal. But plenty of those ones just out the back, and it seems that teams have found potentially a little bit of a blueprint to get through the press and get players forward, because Collingwood do like to play with a lot of numbers up the field. But don't tell Craig McRae that it is, sort of that things aren't going in the right direction, because he was quite bullish after the game that things can turn quickly, and we know that they can. They do play Thursday night against the Saints, which, of course, the first opportunity for them, they get a 6-day turnaround going into that game to hopefully steady things just a little bit, because the last thing they need is to go 0-3 going into a game at the Gabba against a team who are also struggling after 2 weeks of football. The Brisbane Lions started strongly. It looked like it was heading in a good direction, but then just from out of nowhere, Fremantle really turned the game on its head. Ollie, what did you notice? What changed? What were Fremantle able to do to overrun Brisbane last night?
It was pretty similar to how Collingwood played, just a lack of intensity across the park. Fremantle just outworked them. They're just more hungry. They spread better. Yeah, the absence of Kadeen Coleman, it's just going to be huge. Like, since he went down at halftime in the game against the Blues, they just have looked really ordinary. I know they started pretty well, but got 2 goals from some pretty, well, not dicey umpiring, but yeah, they were lucky to get those goals right in the square. They were gimmies in the end. So, yeah, that was probably one of the poorest performances under Chris Fagan, for sure. They usually bounce back after a bad loss, but they didn't at all. It was sort of back to the bad old days in the mid-2010s there for a while. They 8 goals in a row against them. They could do nothing to stem the tide that Freo brought. Their midfielders just outworked them. The Dockers midfielders, they look really strong, and yeah, a lot of talent there. It was sort of interesting to see how the Dockers would go this season. Played finals 2022, disappointing last year, had some great wins. So I think it was always going to be a danger game for the Lions going over there, travelling west. But you thought after a bad loss first up that, yeah, they'd bounce back, and they just didn't. So, yeah, again, like Collingwood, major concerns now, 0-2, and they've got more than a week to stew on it now before meeting Collingwood. They've got the bye this weekend, so that's a lot of thinking time to. It might be a good thing just to settle down a bit and just see where things have gone wrong. But yeah, that wasn't too concerned out of the Carlton game, even though it was a bad loss to give after being 46 points up. But yeah, just the lack of response, very disappointing.
And also, of course, no Lockie Neal last Sunday as well, which was obviously a big out in the middle. But it did feel like in the third quarter, especially when Fremantle started having all those injuries pile up, you just thought, okay, maybe Brisbane with a few more legs, they might be able to outrun Fremantle. But Fremantle just kept having an answer. And there was those couple of chances in the last quarter, Kai Lohmann missing from directly in front, which you kick that, maybe, there's a bit of a late sort of fight back, but then Fremantle go right back the other way. And